My name's Paula, and I've worked on Puppet for over 2 years.
And I'm Helen. I've worked at Puppet for about 3 years now. So Paula and I are both developers within the modules team and are based in Belfast. For those of you that aren't familiar with the modules team, our main aim is to enable contributors with automated tools that will take the mundane tasks out of module development. We're also responsible for maintaining the 50 or so supported modules, and that includes things like tickets, PR reviews, releases, approval requests, and any major module rewrites. So if you've raised a PR against a supported module, likelihood is one of us have reviewed it.
So today our talk, we're going to cover a few processes common to module development. Our aim is to show how we use these tools to help us along our way. The topics today that we will cover is code quality and how we can ensure it, the generation of dynamic documentation and keeping it up to date, writing a changelog in preparation for release, and then we're going to finally finish off with distributing changes to multiple modules. Please note today that most of our rake tasks that we run are readily available within the PDK. However, today we're not going to get into too much detail regarding the PDK. However, we do urge that you check some of the stream content, such as a stream by Brian Jen, which is titled "You Too Can Contribute to the PDK," and another stream by David Schmidt titled "Getting Started with Modules Development Within 15 Minutes." Please note also today that everything we go through will be implemented in all our Puppet-supported modules.
Okay, so that brings us swiftly into my first issue today, which is code quality. So as with many modules, the app module, which we'll be looking at today, has several manifests written in Puppet code and several Puppet extensions, which are written in Ruby code. Recently, some PRs have been merged that introduce some code that isn't necessarily the best practice, so we want to spend some time trying to fix it up. It also helps us to maintain good standards of code so that external users aren't put off when they come to contribute. The code base is quite large, so this would take me quite a considerable amount of time to do manually. Paula, is there anything you could recommend that would speed up the process?
Yes, Helen, I have multiple tools. So today we're going to start off with your Ruby code. I would recommend a tool called Robocop. It not only analyzes and formats your Ruby code, in its default mode, it will run against the Ruby style guide. For your Puppet code, I'd recommend a tool called Puppet written by Roger or Tim Sharp. And again, it'll analyze and format your Puppet manifests for you. A bonus, they have some built-in autocorrect functionality. And if you are using the PDK, it will be the equivalent to running a pdk validate and then a pdk validate -a, which will autocorrect for you. Helen, if you want to get your environment set up, I can actually talk you through implementing it.
Yeah, sure.
Cool, if you set up. Yep. Switch to demo. So as previously mentioned, we're going to run Robocop here in a rake task. So we're going to run bundle exec rake Robocop, and this will go through and analyze your Ruby files for you.
I wanted you to just advance your slide.
Oh, and we have detected 43 offenses. However, don't worry, we can use our autocorrect functionality. So if you run bundle exec rake Robocop :auto_correct. Perfect. Yep, and they're corrected. So if we just run Robocop again, just to verify that now there are no violations. And we have no offenses.
Magic.
So we're now going to move on, and we're going to run Puppet lint against it.
Okay.
So we're going to run bundle exec rake lint. And again, we have our warnings. However, we have our autocorrect So we're going to run bundle exec rake bundle exec rake lint underscore fix. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep, that's you. And we can see our manifests are now corrected. These are simple errors. Different code may vary, but we have just for demo purposes simple errors just to show the actual functionality of how it can work. We're then going to just, if we do a diff, we'll actually see the code change that has happened here through the autocorrect functionality. If you diff it on manifest, just to isolate the changes.
Okay, yeah.
Cool. And we can see each line that started with 2 forward slashes has now been changed, and they're now hashes.
That's brilliant, Paula. That'll make a big difference from doing that completely manually.
Okay, 2 slides. So Helen, my next problem. I maintain a lot of modules. They're popular and they change quite often. Quite often, code's merged and it's not documented. I'm looking for a method that's going to keep my code and my documentation in sync. I'm sick of worrying about the two of them just diverging. Any automation efforts in this area would be fantastic. Please help me.
Yep, so there was a tool developed internally named Puppet Strings. So it was for the purpose of processing documentation. So Puppet Strings will take your existing README. It'll then combine it with a reference section that it generates from any comments in your code. The only real requirement is that you have yard-style code comments inside your code. It also generates in several different formats, for example, HTML, Markdown, or JSON, depending on what you need. So the modules team are actually starting to use it internally for our reference documentation. But for the sake of this demo, we can use it to create a complete set of HTML documentation for you. So if you want to get your environment ready, then I can take you through it.
Go to demo. Yeah, Helen, that's me.
Okay, so we're going to jump straight in and run the exact command. So bundle exec puppet strings generate. So this is pretty fast on the app module, and it just takes a few seconds. But this will be it taking the README, combining it with the reference section, and you can see where it's getting its reference section from, your defined types, your tasks, providers, etc. So Paula, if you actually want to go ahead and open the index.html, which you can find in your doc folder.
Okay.
Yeah, that's you. Perfect. So we can see here, this is your standard README that it's used. And if you actually navigate on the left-hand side to the app class, yep. So we can see there's a summary, and then it goes straight into your parameters. So a couple of things to actually note here is the data type and the default. So those are actually done by Puppet Strings. You don't have to worry about those. That means if you change any of those things on the fly, you can just regenerate and it'll pick that up automatically. So Paula, if you want to go back to your code or command line, and if you vim your manifest and your init.pp file, we can make a change so we can see it in action. Yeah. So if you want to update the summary to something interesting. So if you save that for me, yeah. And if you rerun your generate command, and again, it'll only take a couple of seconds for us. Yeah. And if you reopen, yeah. Now we get back to the app class. There's our change.
Yay.
Easy as that.
Thanks, Helen. Back to slides.
There we go. Okay, Paula. Now we've done that. We have both our documentation up to date. We have good code quality standards. The next step would be for us to start a release process. So there are a couple of things involved in the release process, like I'm sure Paula is very aware. So the first would be to update the version of the module inside the metadata, and the second would be to write the changelog. Bumping the metadata obviously is pretty easy, but when it comes to writing the changelog, it can take up some time, and it can be quite complicated depending on how many commits have gone into the repo since the last release. The changelogs are pretty important for us, especially for announcing new features, any bug fixes we put into the modules, and we do want to encourage people to get the latest version of the module, so it's pretty important. But unfortunately, over the years, due to several people writing changelogs, they've become pretty inconsistent. It can also be difficult to follow back and see where changes come from. Is there anything you could recommend that would streamline that or make it any more consistent?
Yes, Helen. I can recommend a tool called Github Changelog Generator, written by Skywinder. It'll automate your changelog based on the merged PRs that have went into the repo. The only requirement is you need to start labeling your PRs. However, during a review process, this comes quite naturally. The only thing you'll need to do from now on then is update your metadata.json, although you could do some magic with it also. And this will provide the consistency you're looking for. If you want to set up your demo environment, we can run it against your module. Go to demo. Go. Okay, Helen, so this actually runs live against our GitHub repo. Therefore, we're going to get it actually running quite quick. While it's running then, we'll be able to revisit and I'll actually be able to explain stuff to you. But for now, we'll get it going as quick as we can.
Brilliant.
So we're going to bump your metadata.json. So if you vim your metadata.json file, and if we just bump the version to 3.1.1 just for demo today. Brilliant. And we're going to run our rake task, which is bundle exec rake changelog. Great. Cool. And if we just go over to Puppet Labs accounts on GitHub. Is that accounts? And if you click on the pull request tab, and we go to close pull requests. So what we can see here is our supported modules, they now have labels. So if you're ever contributing and you're creating a PR and we add a label, chances are there's good reasoning for it. So we can see here the different types of labels. We have bug fix, we have maintenance, we have features, and we also have backwards incompatible labels. If you don't want it to make the changelog entry, if it's just a minor fix, or not even a fix, sorry, if it's just a minor change, we're going to put it as a maintenance label. So the last PR merge there we can see we've actually called it a bug fix. So we're going to revisit our changelog and hopefully we should see bug fix in the correct section.
It's generated.
Oh, great. So if you just open it here, if we open up in Visual Studio just so that we can actually see the markdown format.
Yeah. Changelog. Okay.
And here we go. So the PR I actually mentioned, we can see it was created by Helen. Therefore, if there's any issues, I know where to go. And it also links the PR numbers. So if I actually want to see the code changes Helen's made, I can now. It's quite quick to identify who's done what and where things have came from. If we scroll down to an older entry in the changelog, so 2.0.0, we can see this has been a manual entry. It's just, it's hard to follow. We don't have the links, we don't have the PRs. Where now we have all that, so that is the consistency that you're looking for.
That's brilliant. And it will be consistent for every user?
Yes, and it's actually quite nice. You can see the specific people contributing to the module. So we can see actually there's quite a few contributions from our team back in Belfast watching our live stream today. So thanks, TP. Okay, so if we back to slides. Okay, so my last problem, it's most definitely one of my biggest. I maintain many modules right now, and I find it's hard to keep up to date with them. I can't use module sync any longer as they're PDK compliant. Sometimes it can take me a few days to roll out minor changes to my multiple modules. I worry about introducing mistakes, typos, everything, anything, as I'm rolling out the same change to different modules. Is there anything here you can tell me about that's going to help me?
Yep. So we actually have a brand new tool which was created internally by the modules team called Pdk Sync. So Pdk Sync was created as a successor to Module Sync, and as you probably found out, Paula, Module Sync doesn't yet work with PDK compliant modules, so this was the solution we put in place. Pdk Sync allows you to define your list of modules. It will then clone those modules into a local directory. It will then proceed to run PDK update against those modules using the last template, which was specified in their metadata.json file. It will even go so far as to create the PR for you, which is pretty cool, which means that if you are trying to PDK update your modules, it'd be simple as one command for all of your modules, really fast, really efficient. It's also broken down into a series of steps or rake tasks, because we love our rake tasks. So for example, there's one that will just clone the modules down into your local directory. There's another, for example, that will run PDK validate against those cloned modules. And then there's even another one that will allow you to run a single arbitrary command against those modules. So if you want to do a change that isn't necessarily associated with a PDK update, you can still do that through the rake tasks of Pdk Sync. But for the purpose of this demo, we're going to do a full Pdk Sync run. So Paula, if you want to get your environment set up, I can take you through the steps.
This sounds pretty dangerous. The demo?
Thank you. Okay, Paula, so the first thing we're going to do is actually define your list of modules to run against. So if you vim the manage modules.yaml file, that's brilliant. So this is a simple YAML file, and what you're going to want to do is update those to the modules you want to run it against. Nice and simple. Cool, if you save that. Brilliant. So before we get into our run, I'm going to show you the broken down rake tasks, because there's a couple in there we want to take note of. So if you run bundle exec rake -t, awesome. So as you can see, there was the ones I mentioned before. Example, cloning your modules into their directory. You can create the commit individually, PDK validate as well. The one I actually want to point out is the clean branches rake task. So Pdk Sync does create live PRs against the repos you run it against. As a result, we had to have a way to manage a bit of risk. So we have the clean branches, and if you specify the branch name that Pdk Sync ran with, it will clean down all of those branches against your defined modules, and therefore your PRs will go away. So no problems there. So if we're going to jump into it, can you run bundle exec rake Pdk Sync for me? And that will kick off our full run. Yeah. Brilliant. So the output's pretty explanatory to what I previously said. It will clone the first module. It does it on a per module basis. It will clone it. It's ran PDK update against it. It stages the files, creates the commit, pushes it up to GitHub, and creates the PR for us. So there's the first one done. Perfect. So it actually lists, as you can see, it actually lists the PR for us, which is pretty handy too. So Paula, if you want to navigate to the first link for me. Awesome. So there's our PR. That's pretty cool, right? That's pretty cool. So we want to point out a couple of things about the PR that are quite useful, actually. So as you can see, the title seems like a jumble of numbers, but the last 7 digits of that is the SHA that will be associated with the template it's run against. So for example, if we saw a change in this PR that we weren't sure about where it came from, we could go to the PDK templates repo, check out the SHA, and we could find our changes. Pretty handy. You can also see it defines the PDK version that was used to run against. So that's all pretty cool. Paula, if you go back to, yeah, and if you click the second link just to make sure it made the other one. Magic. So there we have a full checkout of 2 modules, a PDK update. It's created the PRs. All you have to do is merge them.
Back to slides. Okay, so now that we've done this, our modules, they're all looking great. Let's take some time to reflect on the problems we faced today and the solutions we tried. So we started off with code quality. Everyone makes mistakes no matter how experienced of a programmer you are. Rubocop and Puppet allow you to set your standards high, and they also ensure that you maintain those standards. Plus their autocorrect functionality, it helps. We then moved on to managing and updating reference documentation. Puppet strings provide you with an easy way to update your documentation and ensures you have well-documented code. As a result, your code base becomes more readable and more contributor-friendly. Not to mention, your documentation is accurate to what your actual code base says. We then progressed and we moved on. Our modules were looking good. We were ready to consider a release. We now have a fully automated changelog. We've introduced a new PR standard. All PRs need to be well titled and also correctly labeled. This is according to the new guidelines we set in place together as a team. We then finished up with Pdk Sync. This allows us to maintain and push out multiple changes to all the modules we support. Pdk Sync is the solution to the long-term maintenance of any PDK compliant module, and it allows us to push an awkward change out in one simple single command.
Okay, so that's our talk. Thank you very much for listening. We do hope some of those tools we went over will be valuable to you in your module development. So our emails are helen@puppet.com and paula@puppet.com. Nice and simple. We'll also be on Slack all day, so you can find us in the Forge modules room. Don't know if you can see that past me. And we'll also be in the Puppetize live room. So feel free to come and chat. We're dead friendly. All right, so that was our talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.